Hello, legends. How are we? I hope you're well. It's good to be back. For those of you whose first time it is here, welcome to the podcast. Does it hurt when you do that? Don't do that. The podcast where I, JJ, talk to interesting people about the things they do and don't do that hurt. And my voice sounds quite croaky because you're the first people I've spoken to all day. I am recording this from a different isolation inspiration station. This one, my isolation is very intensely managed by the New Zealand government. And you might think that that sounds really suspicious. Is Joanna in prison now? Well, might as well be a bougie prison because I am in hotel quarantine at the 4 Point Sheraton Hotel in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. Well, what a mystery life is. My absence has been related to a few things. Melbourne's lockdown ending, being back in the studio, out and about, and then I realised I need to move country, wanted to, and started to move my things and got a spot in hotel quarantine, said goodbye. But anyway, here we are. I'm glad I've got this whole week to hang and work on this. Today's guest, I was really sad to say goodbye to. We recorded this episode in October on Wurundjeri country in Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. My guest is Annie Carter. See, if Beyonce Knowles Carter is the Queen, then Annie Carter is the Queen's Queen. I don't know where Queen Elizabeth or Queen, the band, fit into this kind of hierarchy of queens, but Annie's pretty up there. Okay, so she is a conscious business owner of Eve Studio, which is a yoga, dance, fitness and life studio in Melbourne where I worked since 2019. And I could probably do a whole episode about it because Annie and the Eve community are setting up a whole new paradigm when it comes to women's fitness, women's yoga, life, and it is not even a cult. It's just rad. So in this chat, Annie shares how she is someone who is driven by bringing women and people together. She sees the best in them and brings that to the front. We talk about women being in competition with each other, about comparison, celebration, negative self-talk, meditation, acceptance, and the importance of trash talking whilst playing table tennis. Annie has her own podcast, which is far more regular and way less loose than mine. It is called Yes You, and it is available on all platforms. And in this episode, we talk about her episode on Yes You called The Summer Body Lie, and she has made another one on a similar theme, which I listened to yesterday, called Time to Rewrite Your Summer Body Goals. And if you're wanting to get a taste, those are my two faves that spring to mind for me to recommend you to, but really it's all great. Speaking of summer goals, I have just moved country, and so I'm kind of unsure what is in store for me over the next few months. I want to do another performing tour as Banana Jolie, and also I've got a bunch of interviews in the bank when I need to edit these, and then really looking forward to reconnecting with all of my mates here in Aotearoa again, because if I was to ask myself, does it hurt when you do that? Don't do that. One of the things that I will be saying that I constantly do is too much. Really cramming too many things in. And so I need to put my words into actions by figuring out how this podcast is going to fully fit into my life. I want to keep on doing it. I would love to hear from you in terms of what has really piqued your interest and what keeps you coming back, and if you will still come back, even if it's once a fortnight or once every 3 weeks or something like that. And if it's not, I guess you probably wouldn't write to me, but either or, I'll appreciate anything you got. Send me a picture of your dog. Send me a picture of your new cap for your summer safety that we've got going on down under. Send me a picture of your sandwich or of you eating your sandwich in the shower. Who knows? I will leave you for now, my friends, to this chat with Annie Carter. Groovy. Well, thank you so much for being here. You're my guest today.
Thank
Who
you for
are
having
you?
me. Who am I?
Yeah.
My name is Annie Carter. What can I tell you? What should I tell you about myself?
Whatever you like. Who are you? Who you are?
Who am I?
Yeah.
It's a big question. Well, I am. Now I'm like, how do I answer that question? Do I go deep or do I go, what do I do?
You can go wherever you want. We've got time.
All right,
and
let's
that's
start
why
with
I
the
ask
easy
it
bit.
because it's it's tricky,
Yeah,
right?
totally. Yes. And I've heard you ask this of other people and have gone, and didn't actually think to prepare an answer for myself. But who am I? Yes, so my name is Annie Carter and I am based in Melbourne. I have a business called Eve Studio that you know about, JJ. And yeah, the studio, the spaces are about women coming together, about accepting women. And so I guess when I think, who am I see myself as someone that is very much about that, about bringing people together and about kind of bringing out, seeing best in people and kind of inviting that to come to the front. Yeah. And I am a sister and an auntie, and I am a wife and a daughter. Yeah, a friend. That's me.
And I think you're the bomb.
I could have just gone with that. Who am I? I'm the
I'm the
bomb.
bomb. Yeah.
Just
.com.
ask JJ.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. Well, I think you're the bomb too, by the
Oh,
way.
thanks. Cool. It's so funny because there's a couple of other guests I've had on here, and we totally are just like gushing about each other for the whole first bit. We're like, no, you are, and I think one reason I guess, and what I am so grateful to be able to work with you, for you, under you, and know you is what you said about lifting other women up. And for me in my life, that's something I've really been kind of like untangling, is like, where does it come from that we feel like we shouldn't? What that paradigm is, I guess. And also that thing of when it's like, oh, you've got really great hair today. And people are like, oh, no, oh, no, oh, but this and that. And so I guess I want to ask you, like, how you meet either one, those responses when it comes to people deflecting compliments.
Mm-hmm.
And then also two, what for you has helped you, or where it is that you've done the untangling, I guess, to see what it is in society and culture that makes women think we've got to compete with each other. Just a few little questions to start off with.
Right. No probs. So yeah, yes, the whole comparison and competition thing, I was actually thinking about this conversation that we were going to have and about your overall idea with your podcast. Does it hurt when you do that? Don't do that. And I'm thinking, well, what would I say? Like, that hurts when you do that. Don't do that. And I think one of the ones at the top of my list is like comparison, that kind of comparing ourselves to others, which then either leads to kind of either of those two things that you just said. It's sort of like the competition, or it's the self-defeat of just like, oh, I guess I can't compete. And so, but they both sort of come from that point of comparing ourselves to others and kind of either going, all right, I'm going to go in and go hard and try and win this thing as though it is something that someone wins and someone else loses, or we write ourselves off and go, I can't compete, I'm not enough. We sort of make that decision for ourselves. Yeah, which is incredibly unhelpful on so many levels. Like, I just think doesn't help any individual. Like, it's not good for me to just feel crap about myself or to feel like I'm pitched against other women and I have to compete. Like, that's not helpful for me. And it's not helpful for anyone that I might be doing that with. And it's not helpful for us as a collective, as women. And so some of the untangling I think that I've done for myself actually sometimes comes from going, this is a problem collectively. Like, this is actually a societal and what ends up being like systemic issues, like major problems. And that makes me mad when I see it. Like, I can see how much it just sucks for all of us, and it's not getting us where we need to go. I think it's keeping us distracted from what matters. It's like just in so many ways so unhelpful. And so sometimes that becomes the motivator for me to just do my little bit of the work, like my little bit of when someone says, you look nice, and I go, oh, no, I don't. Or someone, or I find myself judging myself against someone else. It's like I see this little scenario going on with me internally is actually just one kind of brick in the wall that is holding this whole structure up. And I don't like the structure. And so I'm not contributing my brick, It's just like, yeah. So I find, to be honest, quite often with a lot of stuff like that, it's like the big picture that I really want to reject, like the big stuff that motivates me to do things differently that are sometimes hard, but as an individual. Does that make sense?
That does make sense, and that's sensational because I don't know about you, but I find sometimes I'm so much better at doing things for other people than what I am
Mhm.
doing it for myself, And sometimes I have had to pretend I'm someone I'm not in the sense of like I'm going to start putting on an accent when I don't have one, but more like this is something that maybe I feel uncomfortable with, but the person that I want to be and in the society that I want to create in the future is going to have hairy legs and not care, for example,
Mhm.
and that sort of thing. Getting angry and letting that be, I guess, that motivation. Okay, so if I was to say to you, does it hurt when you do that? Don't do that. What is that, or what are the that's?
Okay. Yes. So, as we've just talked about, I would definitely say don't compare yourself to other people. And like, that's easier said than done, but I imagine most of these things are that you're exploring in this podcast. But important enough, I think, to really give it some effort, to not go down what often tends to be a real rabbit hole of comparing to others. That is, yeah, really unhelpful because it just pulls us away from being ourselves, and it kind of rips the world off from getting what each one of us uniquely and individually can offer. And so I think it's really important that we kind of just catch ourselves when we're going down that track of just really comparing ourselves to others, and just not doing it, and kind of doing whatever we need to do to not do it. So obviously social media is a huge part of it, and it might be like literally about going, I'm just going to unfollow these people, or because whenever I see what they're doing, I find myself going into this comparing myself, and then it's not just the comparison that's the issue, it's everything that kind of comes from that, the judgment or the competition or the shutting ourselves down, beating ourselves up, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think to kind of just opt out where we can from that. So like, if you know that being on social media is just going to take you down that track, then to just not, to unfollow those people, or whatever you need to do to kind of not put yourself in that position. But I think it's also about training ourselves to not, like, to be able to see, because you can't, unless you're going to go and kind of live in complete isolation, like you're going to be around other people. And I think it's a shift of mindset, that it's actually going, well, what about if I were to celebrate what other people are doing, and recognize their uniqueness while I recognize my own uniqueness and achievement or whatever. And yeah, like it's kind of shifting from it being just about comparing to assess one as better than the other, and instead to kind of compare, to go, oh wow, like comparing two beautiful flowers, or comparing, the ocean and the river. It's like they're amazing, like they're all beautiful, and it's not sort of like, what's the point? Like, you can point out their differences, but that it's like they're just two different amazing things. Anyway, so yes, that's like comparing stuff. I also do just think, just the kind of beating up on ourselves, like just really giving ourselves a hard time, I think is just so fruitless, like, and so damaging. And I think that because it's often really internal, and private, like a really personal, private experience of the self-talk that we put up with within ourselves, that we might not actually put up with if we heard it out loud or said to
For
someone that we
sure.
love, or
Yeah.
anything like
That's
that.
something I'm not sure if that's been kind of for, especially in lockdown, for a lot of people I've been speaking to, it's even louder
Mhm.
for these people, for people, and for me
Mm.
as well, and for a lot of my guests. They've I'm like, just even don't do that, and a lot of people say being hard on myself. And so for
Mm.
you, was there a time when you were, and then you recognized like this isn't helpful, and then you started to kind of change, or how has that worked for you?
Do you know what? I've got this weird thing, and I've tried to get to the bottom of it, and I'm still not quite there. But as a general rule, tend not to be that hard on myself. Not that I am never hard on myself. I definitely can go there for sure. But like, from a young age, I have tended to kind of have this optimism about myself and about my abilities, and like, like, just even from the, like, I reckon I'll be pretty good at that, like I think I could give that a crack. I've talked about this actually on my own podcast, where absolutely have been proven wrong many times through life, that like, turns out, no, I suck at that and like, I'm really not good at that, and whatever. But I just kind of have this quite, it does just feel quite innate sort of optimism for myself, which I think comes across in like an I'm okay. That's where I sort of start from. And to be honest, like, I'm super grateful that that's built in. Like, I'm quite conscious that it's unusual, and in our culture it's unusual. And so, like, I am quite like, where did that come from? Like, I sort of feel like I dig back into my history and sort of speculate about where it might have. But more, I just feel like I see it highlights for me in other people when there isn't that kind of just self-belief. And I don't, it's not a cockiness, like, it's not sort of I'm better than anyone, or whatever, but it's just kind of a, like, I'm okay as a starting point. And I think because that comes relatively naturally to me, it really gets my attention and breaks my heart when I see people have anything other than that, because it plays out in life. Like, we sort of start from however we feel about ourselves, and then that plays out in how we approach things, the things that we do, the things that we say, the things we, attempt. Yeah, so it's a funny one. Like, I don't feel like it's been like a really hard one thing for me, that in some ways I feel really sort of grateful that it's kind of been something relatively easy. And but I do still have have times for sure where I'm just like, oh, like, I've really messed that up, or who do I think I am to do that, or like, I do have those sorts of thoughts, absolutely. But I think yeah, I'm quite on, sort of quite high alert to them. Like, when I see them, I'm like, yeah, I don't like that. Like, it's like, it hurts when you do that. Why would I do that? So I get that for people who do struggle with that, that's a really unhelpful answer. It's just like, that's just annoying that it doesn't come, that it comes relatively naturally to me to not feel, sort of, not give myself too much of a hard
I think
time.
it's interesting though to hear it from the perspective of like, as an observer, when you can see it, in other people how much it holds us or them back, and to then just be like, yeah, interesting, and choosing to step outside of that. And I think they're also intertwined, because the being hard on oneself can often come from comparison, because it's like, I'm not this enough. It's like, well, enough compared to who? Or enough compared to,
Mm.
whatever. And that's kind of like the bridge, and maybe tackling one of them at a time. And I'm mostly speaking for myself, because I'm like, how can Annie's wisdom help me right now? Um, yeah, that they can kind of go together. And so, like, in Australia, which is rife with tall poppy syndrome and self deprecation, how do you, I guess, find that, like, has there been times in your career where people have been like, oh, you think you're too big for your boots, or that optimism isn't met with sincerity?
Um, Probably. Um, I don't know. I haven't had any sort of really huge things where I felt like people have just been like, cut you right down. But like I said, like I feel like that what I'm describing within myself, it's quite an internal state. I don't feel like I'm generally like rah rah, like I'm gonna, you know, achieve, like people might not necessarily even know that I have a kind of, I guess, that built-in confidence or whatever it is that we would call it. I don't make a huge song and dance about it. So in that way, I think that that's kind of the ones that people like to chop down more often than not, where it's sort of they're up there and they know they're up there. And I don't really see myself like that. Although I do enjoy a good bit of of trash talking while playing games with
Like
friends.
sledging.
Yes.
Great.
And just like I do, like actually almost more than the actual game. Like I was playing some table tennis with my sister and our partners the other day. And like honestly, just the trash talk around the table tennis is at least as fun as the table tennis itself, just the like talking yourself up as though it matters, and yeah, as though I have any skills to speak of, which I definitely can't back it up with the skills, but like I do quite enjoy
I think
enjoy
trash
the
talk
talk.
around table tennis is like the key to healthy relationships. My parents were married for 43 years before my dad
Mhm.
passed. And when they first got married, they lived in a house that had a table tennis table, and they were at uni and they didn't pay for heating. So then every hour or so, they'd just go down, have like a rapid fire table tennis game for 15 minutes, just go really hard. And then
So
in
good.
January, I played table tennis with them, and my dad was fully sledging my mum again. Really sexy.
Really?
Yep. It's the key to a healthy relationship, is a good, healthy table tennis sledging, I think.
There you go. Good to know. I knew something deep in me knew it was a good idea.
There's like a boundary, isn't there, I guess, between um, being optimistic and being toxically positive.
Mm.
And it's hard, I guess, in this time, because people are struggling in all sorts of different ways, and to not just slap silver linings on things, and so to maintain that with empathy, I guess, as well. But like you said,
Yeah.
it's internal, and I think that, considering, because we often, like, and this is why I'm getting interesting people, because I kind of want to be like, what is your secret to how you can lift other people up and bringing the change? Because, yeah, we need to kind of look in to help out and all that sort of thing. So I think
Mhm.
that's really interesting to know, and thank you for sharing that.
No worries.
Okay, so if I was to ask you, does it hurt when you do that? Do that. What is something
Mhm.
that hurts that's good?
Right now, I would say, there's a few things. Meditation. You just got to do it. Like, um, I just think it's so good. And I just think that people think it's like, that for when you first getting into it or having an attempt, like it can just be really hard, and it can hurt when you do that. Like it can just be like, oh my gosh, this is whatever it is boring, frustrating, sending my mind into complete overdrive, like having the opposite effect than what it's supposed to, whatever. I just think it is incredibly helpful and worth persevering through the struggle of it, and not and in my experience, it's not like you come out on the other side of the struggle of it. It's like actually like you can do it for a long, long, long time consistently, and like maybe it gets easier in the sense, like I feel like for myself it's become easier over time, where to in the sense that the easy bit is that I'm not questioning whether or not I'm going to do it anymore. It's not, is this good? Is this bad? Do I want it in my life? That part's gone. It's just like you're doing it, like it or not, like whether it feels enjoyable or and desirable or whatever today it's happening. So that part has kind of got easier, but the actual practice itself, I think, is like for me, I'm not out on the other side anyway. I'm sure that there are some who are like,
Yeah, I reckon there are as well. Because do you do Vedic transcendental meditation?
yeah,
Yeah, me too. And
hmm,
my meditation teachers, shout out to Steve and Sue Griffith,
nice.
who they said they'd been teaching it for like 40, meditating for 40 years, teaching for 30 years, and they still have days where it's rough in there
Mm.
because it's a representation of where your mental state is at, and it's never always going to be smooth and easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I would definitely say that that is one worth persevering with, like one worth going into the discomfort, and really that probably, I guess the whole idea of like doing the thing that hurts, I'd say it's about kind of getting to know what those things are that you just want to run away from that are actually good for you. And I mean, that in itself can be quite a process to kind of work out what are those things, because obviously it can be like I think even in the yoga world that we're part of, where it's taught to get comfortable with the discomfort and all of that, and I think, yeah, that's a really important thing for us to do. And it teaches resilience, and it makes such a difference. It means that we can stay with things that need to be examined or worked through in our life, even though it's hard to do that. Like it's really powerful. But then on the other hand, there's also it's the potential kind of grooming us to or whether or not intentionally being groomed, but like it can have the effect of sort of training us not to trust that gut instinct that knows actually this is not good for you, get out. So it's partly about kind of developing that discernment to know, yeah, this is good even though it's uncomfortable, and at other times, no, this is uncomfortable, get out of this, like this, you need to make a move, and yeah, get out it. I don't know, it makes me think even of like running or doing any exercise really, that where it's just like there's a point where it's going to be uncomfortable. It's like this, my muscles are working, my heart is pumping, I'm struggling to breathe in the same way. It's not like just breathing really easily, and that can be part of what it takes to build your fitness or to build strength, or whatever it is. Or it could indicate you're having a heart attack, or it could indicate injury. Like, and so, yeah, I guess it's like that. This is some of the nuance of life, is to work out what are the things that are uncomfortable, but that are worth staying present for and sitting in, tolerating the discomfort, and even getting comfortable with it, and what are the things that are actually like, you know what, like there's an intuition that knows sometimes this is not good, you got to make a change.
Yeah. And with your meditation practice and how long it's been, are there certain things like for me, there's like this these are certain things I can point to that I feel like it is meditation that has improved that little aspect of my life. Whether it's like, for me, it's like, my sleep, and it's the way I handle stress, and it's my self-compassion, which I really
Mm.
wasn't expecting. For you, is there anything that's like that where you can kind of point to?
Yeah, I think for me, yeah, it definitely helps with sleep and stress management, I think for sure. Also kind of time, like my understanding of time, or time, partly time management, but it's more than that. It's like just like even the idea of allocating a set amount of time, like if you're just doing straight up Vedic meditation or transcendental meditation, it's 20 minutes twice a day. To go, okay, I'm allocating that time, and the sense that I don't have time for it, and then once you actually just are committed to it, that actually time rearranges itself around that time. Like your schedule, like once you say it's on, it happens, then it does happen. And for me, that's been a really interesting thing. At the start of this year, I said with two other people, let's hold each other accountable that we will practice every day. And that just shifted it, because it's like, okay, well, there's been a commitment. And I had been practicing pretty much every day anyway, but it's interesting. There's the difference once you actually kind of make a commitment out loud with other people, and know that other people are in it too. Yeah, it's just been interesting to kind of see, like, going, okay, it's actually a not non-negotiable, how time allows for it, and something obviously has to give at some point, and sometimes that's conscious. It's like, okay, no, I'm going to turn off the TV, or I'm going to stop working now, or I'm going to whatever. I'm going to sacrifice one thing to prioritize this thing. But quite often it's just more like, whoop, like just time just sort of seems to move around, and it just makes space for this thing because you made it a priority. And yeah, I found that really interesting. And then I guess just also just in terms of time, it's a sense of slowness, the importance of slowness, and just where our culture, I think it just values pace so much, and busyness, and yeah, meditation just kind of flies in the face of that and just goes, just slow down, like just stop. And that's yeah, that's a helpful thing, I think, to remember the value in slowness and stillness.
So, one thing we haven't talked about, and I guess I haven't really been able to ask you when we've been like saying hi to each other in the corridors
Hmm.
between fitness classes, is how about you becoming Christian when you were 14 and studying theology? And what I'm wondering is how that lens has shaped your life, or you don't have to speak so much to that, but more from that lens, I guess, what you think as the keen observer that you are, and then knowing what you know in terms of your meditation practice, being a yoga teacher, and then also the fact that you are a keen observer and like look at the world and take it in around you. What would you, from your observing perspective, say is like the lay of the land spiritually of the people that you come into contact with in Melbourne
Ooh,
today?
wowza. Good question. Um, yeah, look, I think that the little area that we're in, northern suburbs Melbourne, is a particular crowd, one that I love, but I think is unique in lots of ways, and quite yeah, progressive in lots of ways. And so I wonder if, like, even in terms of spirituality and spiritual openness, maybe different than, say, if you were just to sort of zoom out and go our culture more broadly, or Victoria or Australia or whatever. Yeah, I think that there's definitely like an interest, and almost like an intuitive sense of spirituality, like that there is something more than just the kind of really, really tangible. But I think it's like almost built in diverse, like that there's sort of this not there's not so much like a, I need a set of rules for that. I want to know, like, give me one book that I go to, like the Bible or the Quran or the whatever. But yeah, but I guess just like a kind of a spiritual openness. Yeah, and then on the other hand, there are definitely people around who are not, and who it's almost seems like a dare I say, like a kind of a spiritual decision to kind of go, I don't subscribe to any of that. Like, I don't, see the world in that way. I don't believe in like a higher power or so I don't know if I could sort of say, oh, there's a particular vibe out there. What do you think?
I think, well, I don't know. I don't know where I've got this like idea from, but
Mm.
I'm like, the church isn't cool, like
Mhm.
the church has got a bad rep.
Yep.
A lot, like speaking for, I guess, white, or Western people, a lot of them, I guess, were brought up with, maybe they went to a Christian school, or there may have been some kind of Christianity specifically in
Mhm.
their upbringing,
Yep.
and that's kind of got a bad rep. But I think for me, as humans, we do have this sense of a higher power, and there is this searching, because otherwise it's all so confusing, if this is all there is, like, it's like, whoa, this is really confusing.
Mm.
And I think that because of the globalization of the world, in some ways, that there's, I guess, like, so the church is out, but like hippie, esoteric, more kind of Eastern philosophies and spiritualities are in.
Mm.
And I think that that is great. I'm like, man, whatever gets the people to have that sense in their heart, and if that is what is going to uh, be like a way to live by, or that is going to give a sense of ease and a sense of meaning and a sense of purpose, then that's great. The one thing that I'm a bit like, I'm not so sure about, is when it's like done, I guess, in a bit more of a demonstrative, commercial, like, kind of way,
Mm.
trying to bring the harder, better, faster, no answers kind of aspect that we apply to lots of other parts of life into this realm as well.
Mhm.
And I don't know, like, to be honest, I haven't even, like, a lot of my close friends, if I was to go down their list and be like, this is what this person believes, I don't think I could actually do that, because to be honest, my conversations do feel spiritual in nature, but in terms of fully asking people, like, what is it that you actually believe in, kind
Yeah,
of a thing.
right.
And I think that that is a deeply personal question, and a lot of people wouldn't want to be able to answer it straight away.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I think that's probably one thing. Like, as you mentioned, like for me, like I became a Christian when I was 14. My family, like they would have ticked Christian on the census kind of, but it was not like they were certainly not kind of leading me to get more involved in that. And I just did. Um, Probably a little bit to the shock and dismay of my family, to be honest. Um, but and so yeah, for many years it was very, very much part of my conversations with all of my friends about, what do you believe, and talking about your faith, and like literally it was like normal conversation. How's your relationship with God? Like, this is the kind of talk that we would have. And so although I don't call myself a Christian anymore, I, like, honestly, I love that stuff. Like, I love that conversation. And I have quite a few friends who also were really in that, and have kind of, gone off into other paths since then. Um, but still, like, I'm so grateful to have those friends in my life, because it's like we've been there and we've gone really deep in that stuff. And And it's almost like once you go there, you can't pretend that it's not important. Even if you've decided that you believe really different things or that you don't believe it at all or whatever, it's like it's still yeah, it's big stuff, and especially if you do have any spiritual beliefs, then if they're not just performative and just kind of about, well, what jewelry do I wear, or what what thing do I don't know, say on my, I don't know, whatever, um, then
What sort of gnomes do I have in my garden?
exactly. Yes, exactly. That's, yeah, totally. Then it really matters. And so I do love that kind of conversation. And I think probably sometimes I need to be conscious that, yeah, like what you're saying, not everybody wants to have that conversation, and it is deeply personal. But yeah, like I just think I remember not too, well, maybe like in the last few years, must have been a while ago now, because it was in somebody's house and with some friends, but we were getting together to have a movie night, and we were like literally going to watch like Pitch Perfect or something like that. Like it was going to be a lighthearted popcorn fun night, and I think I was like, so do you guys now, like, who do you think Jesus was then? And they're like, all right, turn off the bloody video, like the TV, like, here we go. And then we go into a big conversation. And yeah, because I mean, I find it fascinating in different ways. I find it both in terms of like trying to make sense of religion like that. Like, well, if Jesus is like, who was Jesus? What but also there's the kind of more like, okay, for you personally, then what does it mean for you to be spiritual? Like if you do believe in God, what does that mean for your life? And yeah, so I find it very interesting, and I feel really happy or content, I think, to kind of be at the point with it that I'm at the moment, where I actually don't feel any responsibility to convince anyone of anything. And so it just means I'm just really curious about it, and also okay with myself not having all my own answers even, but just being interested and intrigued and a little bit in love with the idea of the divine, and whoever that might be.
And I think that's so wonderful and important, I guess, because I think my other kind of like gripe that I have when it comes to modern spirituality is, there's so many things in our lives that we don't have all the answers to.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, in my room looking at a computer, able to see your face, and it's going to do a thing that's going to record it, and we're able to have a full human interaction.
Mm.
I don't know how any of that works. I just believe when I press this that it's going to happen and that you're going to be there.
Yeah.
And that's enough for me, and it makes me happy, and I trust it.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are listening to this, similarly, whatever device you listen to, is like you press a button and it comes out. I don't
Mm.
know. And then, but sometimes for some people, when I guess more when it comes to religion
Mm.
than faith as such, that that is like I need to have every single answer before I can believe.
Mm.
And an all knowing, loving God, divinity, power, energy, source, whatever it is, that knows far more than what we do. If that is, the way that you see it, it's kind of like that,
Mm-hmm.
and to be like, well, this is what I get some good vibes, and I get some good people, and I don't know exactly how it works, but it
Mm.
kind of can. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Mm.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's it. You can get very caught up in the nitty gritty of the details of the dogma of, like, and the doctrine of like, what specifically do you believe, and then that starts to draw the lines of, okay, well, who's in and who's out, or what side are you on, and all of that, which gets really, really ugly and is such a huge problem in the world. But yeah, I have really benefited from letting go of some of that, which has been quite a process. I think for me, actually, the first point of considering the possibility that I might not believe what I thought I believed in terms of some of the doctrines is the closest thing I've ever had to a panic attack. Like, I
Wow.
remember, like, literally kind of going, what if I don't believe that anymore? And it was just this, like, oh my gosh, then what have I been doing for all these years? Who am I then? How do I fit in this? Like, it was really just like, whoa, just massive. Yeah. Whereas now I actually feel quite comfortable and more like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm just swimming out in this beautiful big ocean where I can go in every and any direction and it's all out there. Like, yeah, rather than just kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm losing my footing, I'm losing my hold, and I'm
It's so fascinating. It actually reminds me of a conversation I had at work, working with the psych. Well, I wasn't with any of the psych patients, I was with some of the other clinical staff. And so
Mhm.
a lot of the patients in there have schizophrenia. Hi, everyone. JJ here in the editing room. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I wanted to jump on here and I don't know if it's like a trigger warning, but I wanted to just say I say a thing from this work anecdote, which we then laugh at, and it kind of comes across in some ways that we're laughing at people who have schizophrenia. And what I want you to know is that though that is basically what happens, there's one element of these people's delusions which are funny. I mean, we all have various delusions about ourselves that, if they're reported back, can actually be quite odd. That's why it's really good to laugh at ourselves. But I wanted to jump on here and let you know that I don't think that schizophrenia and delusions, especially when it is getting in the way of your life, is a laughing matter. I think, and I know people who have experienced those sorts of things, and I deeply respect them, and I am very grateful that they have been able to tell me firsthand what it is actually like. Because like with any mental illness, it can seem like this whole thing that's kind of, and we don't talk about it, or we only have one view of it. But this particular one, I guess, plays into that. And if you really didn't appreciate that, let me know, because I'm a human who's learning in the world as well, and I don't want to cause anybody harm at all. So yeah, okay. And so there's about 6 of them who think that Jesus. There's 6 Jesuses.
think that they are
There's about
Jesus.
6 of them who
Okay.
think that they
6
are.
of them.
Yeah.
That's quite a showdown.
Get them to walk on the pool and no, but and then we were sitting there and we were like, what if one of them actually is Jesus and we're the ones who are crazy, you know? And it was just like,
Mm.
oh man. And so you can just spiral on that sort of thing forever. I think it's
Oh,
I
totally.
think it's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh. Okay, so we've kind of talked about the spiritual inner and the mind, and then we've talked a little bit about the body and this holistic. With Eve, we're at Eve, and what you stand for is the holistic connection of the mind and body and spirit or soul. With wellness, which I don't know if you've said this, but I think this is diet culture in disguise
Mhm.
in some ways, because it's an industry now. It's profiteering off the fact that we need to fix ourselves
Mhm.
of some way and fit into a certain mold of some kind.
Yep.
And your podcast, and yes, the episode The Summer Body Lie,
Mhm.
it had me in tears.
Mm.
And it's springtime now, so I have to listen to it again. Like the way you speak, it's like you're holding, like you're cupping the person by the face and you're looking deeply into their eyes and saying, like, this is a lie, that this is a problem and that this needs to change.
Mm.
And so are there ever times when you hear people talking negatively about themselves or only valuing themselves on their looks? And I guess how you react or respond to that.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I do. I am so passionate about it. And it's funny that you say that it feels like that's what I'm doing, holding someone's face and speaking. Because honestly, that's how it feels for me sometimes, that it's like I want to do that, when you just so deeply know something and you so know what it means for us all to really get that, that I do just have those moments where I'm just like, I want to look you right in the eyes, like, can we somehow sear this into your soul that you are okay, essentially, is kind of what I want to say to people. But that passion for me has actually sometimes led me to not handle those situations very well. Not everybody is ready to be held by the face and looked in the eye and some people are just not ready for that. And so it's been an interesting thing for me learning. And I feel like I've learnt this even just at Eve through the process of having so many different women come into the space. And, my vision for this space is that it's so accepting and that people would come in and they would feel accepted by other people, and then they would start to accept themselves and accept each other. But that doesn't necessarily happen instantly, and it doesn't necessarily happen by telling someone that they should accept themselves. So I don't know, just thinking of like one example of a number of years ago, a woman came in to inquire about doing some classes at Eve, and she was saying, what was it? I think she was saying, "Oh, I would need a flatter tummy and a bigger bum." Like she wanted like more round booty, kind of. And which classes do you offer classes that will do that for me? And my initial response is just like, oh my gosh, I just want to hug you and say, don't worry about that stuff. And just that's not important and whatever. And so, anyway, I kind of said that to her. I didn't grab her and hug her, but I was just like, oh, I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was something like, you're wonderful just as you are. But we have a whole lot of great classes. And anyway, and then she sort of, as I was taking her around the place and talking about different classes, she sort of kept on asking, oh, will this one give me a flat tummy? Will this one, build my booty? And I sort of was like, well, yeah, Pilates will do this and this will do that and, whatever, because these things they can potentially change your body. Like, but anyway, but I did just sort of feel like I focused a lot on just sort of more trying to say, hey, it's like I wanted to give her the whole Eve experience in one little moment. Like, you don't have to worry about that. And anyway, she left, and I don't think that she ever came back, to my knowledge. And in that experience, I was kind of like, you know what? There's something to be learnt there as well. That part of the accepting of people, like if my heart is to have people accept themselves, then actually my acceptance of them includes acceptance of the fact that they're not currently accepting themselves as they are. And that's not to say that she wasn't accepting herself as well. You can love yourself, accept your body, and also be like, I'm going to work on strengthening my whatever, or flattening this or enlarging this or whatever. Like you can do that. But yeah, so I guess for me, I've sort of tried to shift a little bit, or maybe naturally have just shifted a little bit more to just kind of going, you know what, it's about me just offering that welcome and that acceptance and trust that that in itself kind of helps people to build that within themselves as well, rather than sort of feeling like I need to ram it down their throats, or yeah.
Thank you. The reason why I asked that is because I was at the hairdresser back then. And similarly, the woman, I imagine that hairdressers is a place where they would hear a lot of people really being like, oh, and she did the woman's hair, and the woman was like, oh, but I don't look better if I lost like this many kilos so that I could, at least my hair's great, kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And I could imagine that, like with hairdressers, people are often, looking at themselves in the mirror for a long amount of time. And I know for some people that can be a really confronting, difficult time
Mhm.
to be looking at yourself in the mirror, especially when you've got wet hair and you're wearing a cloak and
Yeah,
all that sort of thing.
exactly.
Like, it's not necessarily the best
It's
look,
not flattering.
you know.
Exactly. Mhm.
Thank you.
But I think it's
Mm.
also like it's about sort of, I guess, reading the room in that moment, like, because maybe it is right then to just go, you are absolutely perfect as you are, like to give the compliment around. I guess in some ways it's like, for me, I think that our obsession with our physicality is part of the problem, that we're just obsessed with how we look. And so in some ways it's like, I feel like I just want to steer the conversation to something else. But sometimes I think it is appropriate and helpful to be like, you're gorgeous, like you're perfect just like this, beautiful, like I think that that's okay too. Yeah. But the thing, I guess my concern with that is just that if we feed off that, if we start to, even if it is just like, oh, I am beautiful, I do look good, like, then it's like, our looks, they're gonna change. And so if we sort of get, even if we manage to sort of convince ourselves what I look like right now is acceptable, it's like, for all sorts of reasons, just, well, aging is one, it's gonna change no matter what. But it can also change, in a period of a few months, or in a split second. We have, I don't know, an accident or something different, and then if you've just attached so much worth to this physical appearance, then it just can, that rug is gonna get pulled out from under you at some point. So I guess that's it. It's more kind of like, okay, like, yeah, enjoy that, but let's not get too kind of hung up on it, because it's really shaky ground to kind of hold yourself, like to anchor yourself to.
Are you ready for our last question?
I'm ready.
Which you probably know what it is, but anyway. So if you had the ability to transmit a message globally, you could write it in the sky, or it was on a billboard, what would it say?
Can my billboard have special powers?
Definitely.
Great.
Yes.
So, so the message is, you are okay. And that written in the sky is nice, and that on a billboard is nice. But like this, I want like a billboard that grabs someone by the face, looks into their soul, and really, really speaks it deep to their heart. Because I feel like it's pretty just like, it sounds a bit meh, you're okay. But I think honestly, if we got that, like if I got at my deepest place, I am okay. Like I'm okay. And I don't mean like, oh, you're fine. I mean just like it's okay. Like I'm okay. I'm enough. I'm good. It's good. Like that, I truly believe would change the world if we all got that. If everybody deeply knew that we were okay, I think that would change everything in a beautiful way. So that's my billboard.
That sounds like a pretty cool, powerful billboard.
Thanks.
I'd
You can work on the
broadcast it every
technology
day.
that makes it go.
Yeah.
Penetrate people's
right.
beings.
No, you wouldn't want it to get the pressure kind of wrong and squeeze people a bit too tightly.
Exactly.
Or,
Yeah.
There'll be AI for that at some point, I'm sure.
Totally. We'll be ready for it.
Well, thank you so much for being here. If you have any more news or things to share with the people, feel free to drop it in now. But
no, that's lovely. I mean, if people would like to listen more to things I have to say, they can come on over to
Yes You.
Yeah,
and his podcast. So great,
nice. But otherwise, just lovely chatting with you, JJ.
For sure. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for listening and sharing your time with me this week. For this podcast to continue, I could really use your support. If you enjoyed the episode, please screenshot it and put it on your social media, send the episode to your friend or family, and if you can click subscribe to the episodes, they'll fall into your algorithm like your old friend JJ popping into your ear every week. I appreciate it so much. And as well as listening to this podcast, you can just keep on listening to your own wisdom by asking the questions, big and small, like, does it hurt when you do that? Don't do that.